Hi everyone, Carter Krishnaiyer here for Beyond the 90, the Florida Soccer Report on Beyond the 90. It's been a while since we've done a video, as Jonathan Starling and I talked about a while back. We were trying to get away from the video and podcast model, which we had transitioned to, and get back to written long form model, which is what we've done. But sometimes there are events and matches that call for a video because you just need that rapid fire reaction. We just watched, to me, and I watch a lot of football, the most entertaining match I've watched in the last few months, which was Loudoun United 2, Tampa Bay Rowdies 2 at Segra Field. It was a critical game for the Rowdies, really needed all 3 points, although the point keeps them alive. And with the way Detroit's playing, Indy is very inconsistent. Rhode Island doesn't score goals consistently. Tampa Bay still has a shot. But 3 points, I think if they'd gotten the 3 points tonight, they would have made the playoffs for sure. With Monterey Bay coming up, which should be 3 points, and then Detroit at home, which should be 3 points. A trip to Rhode Island where you could split the points. And forgot what the other match the Rowdies play is. But the three of those, I mean, the next 3 matches, I think, are all matches they can get results in. I'm forgetting who they're playing in the final match. But let's get to this match. This was the most entertaining game I have watched, entertaining football match I've watched in the last few months. And again, I want to stress something that I've had to stress in the past, which is I do not confuse entertainment for quality. Okay, and in the past, those of you that listened to me for 15 years on the World Soccer Talk podcast, and there'll be a note about that at the end of this video, by the way, about that legacy World Soccer Talk podcast. I have said that for years, that people, particularly in this country, in the United States, confuse entertainment for quality. So they think the Premier League is like the SEC football of world football. When for many of the years of the last 15 or 20 years, La Liga has been the better league, quality-wise. For a few years, the Bundesliga was the better quality league. I think at this point, the Premier League probably is the best league in the world. But for large portions of that, the last 15 or 20 years, it was not. But because it was more entertaining, because the broadcasts were better, because there were more traveling supporters than in Spain, all of these things added to the spectacle. So, and yes, I'm about to talk about a game where there was basically an empty stadium, 2,500 fans or so at Segra. I didn't check the attendance, but I would guess it was around 2,500. But this was American soccer and what it means on display. The Rowdies, knowing they needed 3 points. Loudoun trying to stop the bleeding. For the first time all season, Loudoun entered the match outside of the top 4 in the East, falling to 5th. So if they want to have a home playoff game, they have to finish in the top 4. And there were tensions right off the bat. Paul Marie shoved Ben Mines when he was on the ground. I think it probably should have been a red card. Tampa Bay should have been reduced to 10, but that was in like the 5th or 6th minute, and it just kicked off from there. What a spectacle. There were controversial calls both ways. Maybe this evens out the non-red card because I don't think Loudoun's penalty, I think Albacora was looking for it and got it. The penalty that equalized the match for the first time. But chances. Bill Hamid, a couple really good saves. One way for Tampa Bay, the other way, some really good saves from Ugo Ferru. And you had Loudoun hit the post 2 or 3 times. You had Flo Volo, a player I know very well from his time at Miami FC, who is a spirited player, to say the least. You saw him really argy-bargy and get very emotional during the match, which I think Loudoun needed at that time. Flo is really good at that, right? He's an emotional guy. Great player. You saw Albacora, who has not played particularly well since early July, come off the bench and really spur Loudoun on. You saw for Tampa Bay the really good combination play now between Arteaga, who's back in form, and Crisostomo and Paul Marie. Rubens Pacius, who's been Tampa Bay's most money scorer this year, misses 2 great chances to win the match. Loudoun, as I said, had hit the post twice earlier. And it was just a frenzy. It was just so entertaining, the game. And it was so entertaining that, these very kind of slow USL matches, usually they take a lot of time on replays. There were so many chances back and forth late in that match that Tampa Bay had a chance with a great save by Farouk. Then Loudoun had a chance, great save by Hamid. Then Tampa Bay had another chance, which was cleared, and they weren't able to show any of the replays until after that whole sequence. So this is just something I want to say. For those of you out there who may think there just isn't anything worthwhile watching in domestic soccer, in local lower division soccer in my area or MLS or whatever, women's soccer, we saw a great game between Jacksonville and Carolina, as said earlier today. My colleague Jonathan Sterling has covered that match. But I have to tell you, I wanted to channel surf during that match. Fort Lauderdale United was about to kick off. There was a game in the Bundesliga between Union Berlin and Hamburg I was wanting to watch. There was a match in Italy, the Milan match I wanted to watch. I couldn't take my eyes off it. So that was another showcase for the strength of the sport and the strength of USL in this country. But people who think it doesn't mean anything, because there are people who come out and say, oh, well, these games don't mean anything in the regular season. Okay, they don't mean as much as they would if you have promotion and relegation. But what I saw tonight, and I've made that comment at times too, because I'm a promotion and relegation advocate. I'm someone who has been around clubs and leagues in the U.S. and have seen my fair share of matches where people mail it in and say, oh, well, it doesn't matter, we'll make the playoffs anyway, right? There is that. But what I saw tonight was two desperate teams. And this brings us to the point that if there is some sort of promotion and relegation, and there is something on the line in regular season matches in USL, you will see more and more matches like we saw tonight up in Leesburg, Virginia, Loudoun, and you will see maybe more women's matches like that Jacksonville, Carolina game today, which is fantastic. So Rowdies get an equalizer, so Loudoun scores twice. And then Tampa Bay gets an equalizer. All these goals were in the second half, and there were plenty of chances for Loudoun in the first half, right? It was Tampa Bay didn't play very well in the first half after the Paul Marie hit out, and there was a challenge, another challenge by a Rowdies player that I thought could have been a second yellow. I'm trying to remember someone who had a yellow. Maybe it was by Bodley. So maybe they should have been reduced to 10 men there. At the same time, they got a legitimate penalty, which Arteaga slotted home. Loudoun, that's not a pen for me. The penalty that equalized the game at 1-1. But anyway, I wanted to make this video because this was just such a fantastic game. And this was such a strong statement for American soccer and for USL, as was the Super League match earlier, the Gainbridge Super League match earlier today between Jacksonville, Ashlyn Puerta, who James Knowles and I interviewed a couple of weeks ago with a hat trick. 18-year-old, spent a year at Florida State, now professional, 6 goals on the season. Hat trick for Jacksonville as they win. Fort Lauderdale, congratulations, they beat Brooklyn 2-1. They go top of the table in the Gainbridge Super League with that big rematch from the final last year with Tampa Bay looming. You can tell how excited I am. I mean, this Tampa Bay Rowdies game was just so compelling to me. I mentioned World Soccer Talk earlier. I've gotten a lot of requests from you, from those of you out there saying, hey, you covered the Premier League, whether it was for EPL Talk or World Soccer Talk or other outlets. About.com, I was their chief Premier League writer before they folded the site. For several years, I was their chief Premier League writer. And then for other media outlets, in addition to EPL Talk and World Soccer Talk. And we're used to hearing you on podcasts. We're used to hearing you talk about the Premier League. I don't really want to cover the Premier League. I'll admit the last year was the first year I had taken off of the Premier League since the league started. Or actually since the league started, because it was my first year of college at the University of Florida. I started watching the Premier League. It was also the first year of the Premier League. And I would watch the replays and stuff. 92, 93 season. The first season I was able to really watch games was the 95, 96 season. I think that's the first time we saw even tape-delayed matches in the United States. But I've been with the Premier League since the beginning. But I didn't watch the Premier League at all last year. This is the first season I have in the 30-something years of the league. I just wasn't interested. I'm not interested in a league where the three teams that get promoted automatically get relegated. And it happened 2 straight years. Didn't watch the Premier League. I was watching the Championship last year. I was watching the Bundesliga. Was not watching the Premier League. I'm going to admit that. And if I was saying things about the Premier League and giving analysis, I was probably faking it. Well, quite frankly, didn't watch the league. I am watching the league this year. Sunderland has been newly promoted. They look like they might be able to stay up. Burnley, I think, has the players to stay up. Leeds is playing well. They might be able to stay up. So those are the three newly promoted teams. So because they're more competitive, I'm once again interested in the league. I'm just going to be honest with you. That's what drives it. And then you have teams that have been in the league for a long time. West Ham, who are in and out of, they've always been in kind of this mire. And Wolves, who've now been in the league for 7 or 8 successive seasons and have had some really good years in there that are looking like they might get relegated. So this makes it much more interesting for me. So I am not going to commit to full-scale Premier League coverage at Beyond the 90, but I am going to commit to more coverage, right? Occasional things. I have something I want to say about Eddie Howe this week that maybe we'll either do in video form or we'll do in written form, and among other things. And it's a league that, because I know the culture in England, so I watch the Bundesliga a lot, but I'm not as into German. Well, this is a Bundesliga thing, but I'm not as into German culture, right? I mean, England, I'm an Anglophile, so I understand not just the football side, but the cultural side, the backroom side, the supporter side. And some of you, actually I shouldn't say some of you, many of you have requested that I start talking about the Premier League again. Like, where are you? What have you done? And people are missing the World Soccer Talk podcast. Christopher Harris has another employment now. He's got another job. But I'm doing, and I've got another job, right, with the Boca Raton Tribune, which is more or less full time. It's been a bigger time commitment than I thought it was going to be, but that's fine. It's doing what I love, and it's doing what's important. But I am dialed in again to the Premier League and dialed in again to English football in a way I wasn't last season. So yeah, we'll do some coverage of the Premier League as well. So just to summarize, the Tampa Bay Loudoun game, if you can find the replay of the match, it's the most entertaining thing you'll see all weekend. Any sport. I know I don't care if I don't necessarily watch other sports. I know the Ryder Cup was going on this weekend. That's why I'm saying in any sport. And I guess there was probably basketball and football and that stuff, American football, that stuff also. But you will not top this for entertainment and for passion.